The war in West Asia has spilled into its second week. Israel and US say their strikes have entered a new phase, hinting at intensifying and expanding the attacks. Iran, on the other hand, says it is ready for a long conflict, claiming the ability to fight an intense war for 6 months. US President Donald Trump says he is not interested in negotiating with Iran. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Saturday, Trump said the air campaign could make negotiations a moot point if all potential leaders of Iran are killed and the Iranian military is destroyed. But a week into the war, any plan to cut off Iran's leadership, destroy its military ability and prevent it from rearming and regrouping has not fully materialized. Even faced with an unprecedented convergence of external pressure and internal strain, Iran is fighting back hard. The country has vowed to retaliate in a proportionate manner, but Iran said that it was ready for a long war, suggesting a more calibrated approach to their retaliatory actions. Now, the regional repercussions spiraled, with Saudi Arabia intercepting a wave of drones headed for targets including the diplomatic quarter in the capital Riyadh and Kuwait, saying an attack hit fuel tanks at its international airport. World leaders are warning against an endless war. German Chancellor Merz warns such a prolonged conflict may lead to a new migration crisis in Europe and lasting economic damage. Analysts bet the rise of a political military nationalist alliance is more likely in the near future. Even if Donald Trump finds an Iranian leader he can negotiate with, it will be challenging to find someone acceptable to Iranians, other nations and global powers. Now, to discuss further on this, from Doha, we are joined by defense and strategic expert Colonel David DeRoche. Questions. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast, sir. It's been well over a week since the war started, and both sides are claiming that they are winning. But in terms of the actual situation on the ground, sir, who is actually winning the war at the moment?
Well, I'd have to give that hand to not Iran. Let me put it that way. I mean, I suppose the thing that's getting most people's attention here in Doha, and probably military analysts, is Iran's missile and drone campaign. We've seen the numbers there fall off. So there were over almost 400 missiles fired on the first day. I think we're down to about 15 missiles, maybe even in the single digits. So that's fallen off prodigiously. The drone attacks have fallen off as well. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of failure Iran has been unable to really, even with Hezbollah landing, they've been unable to keep the missile barrage up in Israel. And then we've seen what looks like just a desperate attempt to attack every country around Iran, to include Cyprus, Turkey, all the GCC states, and Azerbaijan. So none of these are things that you would do if you're winning. If you're winning, what you'd do we'd be seeing images over and over again of aircraft destroyed on the ground, Israeli and American aircraft. We haven't seen that at all. So I'd say Iran's losing.
So, sir, the IRGC claims that they are willing to prolong this war for 6 more months, and they are capable of it. Now, if the war is prolonged for that long, who do you think will benefit more from this?
Iran will. With Israel, it's kind of a push. They have the ability to, for Israel, this is an existential war, I think. I think that while they're always, you can always find a varying opinion on any issue in Israel, but most people, I think, in Israel have always been extremely concerned about Iran and would welcome the destruction of Iran's nuclear program and their missile program. In the United States, President Trump is such a polarizing figure. I mean, if he announced a cure for cancer, he'd probably 40% of the American population would be against that. And this is viewed as a war of choice, I think, in the United States. So if he can wrap it up within a month, then I think it will be seen as a stunning foreign policy victory. Still won't convince that hardcore people who really, really dislike him. But if it drags on, he's going to be in great political trouble. He has nailed his colors to the mast on this one.
So I just want to get your perspective, since you're based in Doha, and so far the Gulf countries have not actively joined the war, even though they continue to be attacked. They remain a key part of the conflict. Is there any situation where the Gulf countries will be forced to play a more active role in this conflict?
I honestly think that they are going to do that at some point. I think that no sovereign state can be expected to take the damage that they've done. Doha, where I'm at, we haven't seen a lot of damage. We haven't seen damage to infrastructure in the city here, the way that you see the photographs in Dubai. It's worth noting, Iran has fired more missiles at the United Arab Emirates than they have at Israel. So you kind of ask yourself, well, who do they really see as their enemy? So I think that that country cannot afford to just say, oh, well, these things happen. I think they're going to have to, they don't want this to become a norm that Israel can fire missiles at the GCC states whenever they feel like it. So I think there will be something. I'm not saying that they're going to engage in a protracted warfare, but I think there will be some kind of retaliatory strike that we'll see in the future. I'm not sure when.
So now you spoke about Israel. Now, Israel is now targeting the energy infrastructure in Iran. Now, how big of a hit is that to Iran in terms of their military capability?
Well, it won't directly affect their military capabilities. But what it will do is it will dry up. Energy is their only source of hard cash. And basically they sell their energy mostly to China. A little bit of it through shore-to-shore illicit tanker transfers winds up in India. But China is really the big one here. And that's where they get their money from. So by disrupting that sector, it will starve all of the Iranian government. And probably, of course, exacerbate the economic conditions that, led to the huge protests we saw in January and December. I think that Trump's theory of victory is that if he removes Iran's ability to reach out and strike its neighbors, and then keeps the economic pressure on, that the next time you have protests, which will be probably this summer, the regime will be overthrown from within, and that will be a more lasting regime change.
So since you're talking about the Iranian authorities, so now Masoud Pezeshkian first apologized to the Gulf countries and then backtracked. So there is also an internal rift within the Iran leadership. Is that going to affect Iran's strategy in any way?
Oh yeah, it's pretty confusing. Basically, Iran is since 2009, there's been sort of a slow motion coup by the Revolutionary Guard. Pezeshkian is the president of Iran, but the Revolutionary Guard only answers to the supreme leader. And right now there isn't a supreme leader, so they're kind of on their own. So even while he was announcing his apology, Persian analysts, and I work pretty closely with two pretty good ones from Iran, were saying, well, apology in Persian means sorry. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm responsible for what happened. It means I'm unhappy with what has happened, which is not exactly how we understand an apology to be in English. And then we had a missile alert at the same time as right after the apology was issued. So I'm not sure whether this is a deliberate strategy where the Revolutionary Guard or the Iranian government as a whole gets together and decides to kind of put people off balance, or whether you just have different factions of government that aren't coordinating with each other. But either way, I don't think anybody put much stock in the apology, and the behavior of Iran in attacking its neighbors continues the same as it did before the so-called confession.
Well, thank you so much for those insights. You, of course, are in Doha, in Qatar, and, of course, have a very good insight into the way the Gulf is reacting to this ever-evolving conflict. Thank you so much for those insights, sir. We'll, of course, continue tracking the most consequential geopolitical story at the moment.
Thank you.